All right, let's jump right in. We're talking about a war, a massive one, that pulled in the world's biggest superpowers, cost millions of lives, and here's the kicker. Technically, it's still going on.
I want you to imagine something for a second. What if your country, the place you call home, was just split right down the middle? Forever. It sounds like something out of a crazy movie, right? But for Korea, this isn't fiction. It's their reality.
And that's really the heart of this whole thing. This is the story of how a war from over 70 years ago isn't just history. It's something that created a division so deep, it's still shaping our world right now.
So, where do we even begin? Well, to understand what happened, we have to go back in time. Picture this. World War II has just ended. The whole world is trying to pick up the pieces and figure out what peace looks like. But for Korea, a whole new storm was gathering on the horizon.
So you have Korea, one country, one people. But suddenly it's sliced in two along this imaginary line called the 38th parallel. In the north, you've got the Soviet Union support. In the south, you've got the United States. We're talking two totally different worlds, two giant superpowers all staring each other down on this one little peninsula. You could just feel the tension in the air. It was like a powder keg just waiting for a match.
And that match was lit on June 25, 1950. In a shocking move, North Korean troops poured across the 38th parallel. It was a massive, sudden invasion. The goal? Simple: to take over the entire peninsula and reunify the country under their rule. In that one moment, everything changed.
And just like that, what started as, a civil war, it wasn't going to stay that way for long. This thing escalated, and it escalated fast. The biggest players on the world stage were about to get involved, turning Korea into a chessboard for a much, much bigger game.
And I mean, the speed was just terrifying. We're talking days. In a matter of days, the UN, with the US leading the charge, jumped in to defend the South. Then, just a few months later, China got nervous about all those troops near its border, so they threw their weight behind North Korea. Boom! It wasn't a local conflict anymore. This was now a global showdown.
And this is what historians call a proxy war. It's a textbook example, really. You have the two big superpowers, the US and the Soviet Union, who desperately want to fight each other, but not directly, because that would be, well, World War III. So instead, they fight through other countries. They were basically using Korea as the battlefield, and Korean lives were caught in the crossfire. This was the Cold War turning hot for the very first time.
But okay, let's step back from all the big picture politics and military moves for a minute. Because behind all of that, there's the real story, the human story. And the price people paid in this war, it's beyond devastating.
Get this, 2.5 million people. That's the estimated number of lives lost. And the vast majority weren't even soldiers. They were civilians, all in just 3 short years. It's a number so big, it's almost impossible to wrap your head around.
But a number like that, it still doesn't tell the whole story, does it? This was a war that ripped families in two. Literally, you had brothers who ended up fighting on opposite sides. The entire country, their home, became nothing more than a battlefield. And the Korean people, they paid the highest price imaginable.
The level of destruction was just total. Think about a city like Seoul. It was captured and recaptured 4 times. It was basically rubble. Millions of people had to run for their lives, becoming homeless in their own land. And for so many families, that new line on the map, it was a wall. It meant they'd never see their parents, their children, their siblings ever again.
So, after 3 years of this absolutely brutal fighting, with the front lines just swaying back and forth, everything just grinds to a halt, a bloody stalemate. So you'd think, okay, the war's over, right? Well, this is where things get really weird. So, in 1953, the shooting stops. The guns go quiet. After 3 long, terrible years, it looked like it was finally over. You can imagine the whole world just letting out a huge sigh of relief. But was it really over?
And that's the big question, isn't it? Did the war actually end? And the shocking, mind-bending answer is nope. It didn't. Not in the way you think.
Okay, so here's the crucial detail. What they signed wasn't a peace treaty, it was an armistice. And an armistice is basically just a timeout. It's a promise to stop shooting at each other. That's it. What's missing is the peace treaty, the official document that says, hey, this war is over, we're at peace now. They never signed one. Which means, if you want to get technical about it, North and South Korea are still officially at war.
And the fact that this war never officially ended isn't just a weird piece of trivia. It has had massive, real-world consequences that we're still dealing with today, more than 70 years later.
This isn't something you just read about in a history book. It's a living, breathing situation. The war basically set the Cold War's divisions in stone. It created the DMZ, one of the most heavily armed borders on the entire planet. And, of course, it left a nation completely split. It's a terrifying lesson in how fast a small conflict can spiral out of control and suck the whole world in.
You know, the Korean War did more than just draw a line on a map. It carved a wound so deep that it's been passed down from parents to children to grandchildren. It affects millions of people whose lives are still defined by a war that ended before they were even born.
And that's ultimately why this story is so important. It's a reminder, a really powerful warning actually, that if you don't truly resolve a conflict, it can just sit there and fester for decades. It shows us that finding a real, lasting peace is maybe one of the hardest things we can do, but also one of the most important.